Welcome back to Music, Laughs, and Other Stuff. On the phone now I have another special guest. I don't know why I say another, because I never had anyone just now. But anyway, another. Why not? You might know this guy from Cash Cab. He gives out money for free because he's a charitable man, I guess.
That's right. It's not a registered charity, that show, you know.
It should be.
I know.
Of course, his name is Mr. Adam Growe, who's going to be at Yuck Yucks this weekend, the 24th to 26th. All the shows are at 8 p.m. So if you want to catch him at all, the tickets are $24.95.
That's a deal.
It is a deal.
Yeah.
And you're going to give away money at the show, right?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I've been doing stand-up for, 16, 17 years, and then when I got Cash Cab, I had the brilliant idea of bringing the two worlds together as a comic and a trivia guy. And so I've since been touring with the Adam Growe Quiz Show, where I do stand-up, and in between, bits and stuff like that, and working with the crowd, I bring up people from the audience where people have a chance to come on stage as contestants and win cash out of my pocket, live on stage. And so, obviously there's a reward in the Adam Growe Quiz Show for the trivia nugget, but it is designed around humor and me having fun with the contestants and, presenting the questions in a fun, entertaining way. So it's still a comedy show, but if you got your smarts with you could leave the Yuck Yucks there with a little cash in your pocket.
So you haul these people up on stage. Do they sit down? Do you have them face the wall?
Yeah, that's right. It's like, no, it's not meant to be like a demeaning or embarrassing situation. I kind of go out into the crowd and I feel the vibe and I find people that would be good contestants, and I bring them up. One person they come up in pairs. Probably have time in a 60-minute headline show to do about 3 or 4 games. And then again in between do stand-up comedy, so there's a full spectrum of entertainment. But I bring people up and I have fun with them, and I work very much like in Cash Cab. I kind of work with the dynamic of the people. So it might be a boyfriend, girlfriend, husband and wife, couple of buddies, and so I'll work with that dynamic and have fun with that. But I'll also ask questions that might be in their wheelhouse or questions that they really should have no reason to know the answer, but do know the answer. So that becomes funny in itself in terms of the spontaneous feel to the actual quiz games as well.
So you've been doing stand-up now for about 20 years, is that correct?
Well, I've been doing stand-up per se for about 16, 17 years, but I've been performing professionally in some capacity if you include my career as a radio broadcaster, because I actually started in the radio. There you go.
I read that.
So, my first gig, I had a bit of a different career right out of university, and then I went back to school for radio. So my first, I worked in radio full-time for about 7 years, and I still dabble part-time. And the only reason I got out of radio, because I miss it, was because at a certain point I started to get more serious about stand-up comedy, and my comedy career took off. And I was having to ask for a lot of time off to, tour, go on cruise ships, or, make the big bucks as a comic. And my radio program director was like, you need to make a decision now. So I love radio, but it just didn't have the longevity, and unfortunately I had to make a decision to kind of depart from that as a full-time career.
Well, it seems like you made the right decision.
Well, like I said, it's hard because I don't know about St. John's, but when I started in radio in Ontario, some of the same people that are doing the morning drive show, which but your listeners might not know, that's the primo gig in radio. You want to get the morning drive show. It's where you make the big bucks, the biggest profile. And I eventually worked my way up to morning drive in smaller markets. And by the time I ended up at Easy Rock, which is now Boom in Toronto, it's a big station in the biggest market in the country, I was doing the swing shift, and I got to fill in on the morning. So I was, I had a pathway there. I was doing all right. But now when I think about it, I got out not really thinking about it, but right now in Toronto at least, some of the same people that 20 years ago were doing the morning drive are still doing it. So when you think about the opportunities that would arise in the sweet jobs in radio in this country, it's very few and far between. So I think I kind of got lucky that I was able to be successful in another arena and still dabble in radio and have fun with it.
It is. Radio is it's pretty fun, and you have that radio voice.
Yeah, and I get bugged all the time. This is how I've always talked, and I was even the guy. I don't know about you, Gary, but I was the guy in high school that was doing the morning announcements on the PA. I've always been on a microphone, and so my family always bugs me that when I'm talking to them at the dinner table, it's like, you don't have to you don't have to talk to us like you're doing the weather and the traffic, buddy. You can just talk to us in your normal voice. And I'm like, this is what I sound like, and I'm not trying to put on airs or anything like that. It's just what the pipes sound like. And so, it's the same on stage when I'm performing live as when I'm doing radio. I guess, it's just one of those things.
Oh, it's good. It's good voice for it. So, that being said, like doing back to the stand up, what made you kind of go toward the game show aspect of, like, not just Cash Cab, but like the quiz show now? Like, what are you really interested in that kind of thing? Like, what made you go towards that?
Well, I had actually always been a trivia guy. I wouldn't say I was like a walking encyclopedia, but I had, for instance, many years ago while I was performing and had my stand-up career going before Cash Cab, I started a multimedia company, which I still have. It's my own separate company, and I'm in the business of producing audio and visual content for the digital media environment, which is now multi-platform. It used to be handheld devices, cell phones. I was creating audio, but the technology, as you might know, has changed dramatically since 2006 when I started my company. And so one of the primary content products that I was creating was trivia-based. And so all of a sudden, I get this gig hosting Cash Cab, and I'm like, wow, I mean, it's serendipity. I got to go with this. But I knew at the same time, it's, not to be knocking of Canadian and our star structure, but it was like, I got this gig Cash Cab. I didn't know where it was going to go. I had a very good feeling about it. I had, high hopes. But in Canada, if you have a show for 1, 2, maybe 3 seasons, it's kind of a shot in the bucket. You're not going to be, necessarily a recognizable face and name. Fortunately, I made the decision right out of the gate to start making the transformation of my live act, where possible, also a quiz show act. So when I got corporate gigs, I pitched that. If they wanted to get that, that was fine. In comedy clubs, I started to dabble a little bit, self-promoted that. And so it was kind of like a slow burn, kind of right away in 2008, I started saying, I'm going to start to work the quiz show angle because I'm going to put those two worlds together. And fortunately, it was the right decision because now that Cash Cab's been on the air for over 5 years, we've done season 8. We're, knock on wood, hoping for season 9 to be shot this spring, summer. That's a bona fide run in Canada for that long, for 8 seasons of a show. Now more and more people don't only, recognize me as the Cash Cab guy, they know me by name and by face, and so now I can really market that, what I really enjoy doing, which is bringing trivia and comedy together on stage and other environments. So it's been awesome.
It's definitely something that no one else does. Like, I haven't seen any other comic combine those two aspects. So you're definitely unique.
Yeah, and I'm proud of the fact that excuse me. And I'm proud of the fact that I can put them two together because it takes a real. Basically, it's like this. I'm a host first, which is what I've always been. I'm a comic as well. I was hosting in radio and in live environments before I even committed to stand-up comedy. And I think that that's what makes the difference, because if I was a comic first, it might be a harder transition for me to make the show about the contestants. Cash Cab is very much like that. In the cab, I inject a little bit of Adam's humor here and there, but it's really about the game and the contestants, and my job as a host is to make those elements really work well. And if I was a comic first, I might be inclined to make the show more about me all the time and not let those other elements, which are, really what drive the show and are really what's enjoyable, stand out. So for me on stage, for instance, as you know from your comedy experience, really stand-up comedy is all about you. And you've got to make it all about you. So it's a really weird choice for me to bring that hosting sensibility into the stand-up environment. I'm very good at knowing when I work in an ensemble piece, whether it be in a TV show or in a live environment or in a show like Cash Cab where I'm hosting. I'm very good about allowing other people to shine and be the stars. But when I'm a comic, you are a maverick, and it is all about you, and it should be, because you've got to stand up there. I mean, when I'm headlining a show, and as I did before I even did the quiz show, you're talking to people for 60 minutes, and you've got to give them a reason to want to listen to one person for an hour as a headliner.
Mm-hmm.
So you've got to make it about you. So to make the choice to say, now I'm going to introduce something new to the mix. I've got my comedy bits. I love doing stand-up in between, but now I'm going to, break the walls down and give people a chance to interact, and not only from their seats, actually come on stage with me and share that stage, and also give away money and create humorous trivia games. I mean, there was a whole other level and dimension of the comedy writing that goes into the games that I bring to the table. So it's an interesting choice, and I'm just glad that I have the foundation as a host to do that, because in as you'll see it at a comedy club, sometimes crowds are a moving target. They're a beast, right? So if you go out there and say, I'm introducing the opportunity for you to be interactive, if people have had too much to drink or they're feeling a little, aggressive, it could easily get out of control. And it never does, but there are certainly shows I do, like if I come to a campus, for instance, or if I go to a bar and I do the quiz show, sometimes it's pretty raucous. And so then it ends up being a little bit more about the games and the contestants than the stand-up. But I'm very optimistic, because I've stood on the stage at the St. John's Yuck Yuck, said it's a really great comedy club. The vibe there is very good. That I'll have that frenetic energy that I'm looking for, that eclectic feel to the room, but I'll also be able to reel it in and perform and make sure that the audience, and that's another thing about the quiz show, is that people don't have to feel as if they're in the audience disengaged, disconnected, watching a game show happen that's only between me and the two contestants. They're very much a part of it. The audience is very much engaged in the humor and the energy that's happening. So it's just a lot of fun to do.
It seems I actually tried the online quiz show. The one
the app I have on AdamGrowQuizShow.com.
Yes, yeah, I tried that, and you gave the obvious answer, and I still did horribly. Just horribly.
Well, I mean, that's the idea with my questions is, when I do the live environment, what you'll find is I'll ask a question, and it'll be worth X amount of dollars. And if the contestants get the correct answer before I give my obvious multiple choice, then they get that X amount of dollars. But if they need the multiple choice to get the answer, which is supposed to be, Gary, it's supposed to be obvious, they get a little less money. So no matter what, people pretty much win money. It's just they win more if they actually have the trivia knowledge. And the humorous options are designed to be my unique way of giving the answer in an entertaining, funny way, as opposed to just saying, here's a question, here's the answer, here's a question, here's the answer, here's your money. I have fun with the humorous options so that there's a little bit of entertainment value there.
Yeah, well, it just made me feel bad about myself, Adam. So.
No, sorry about that. Well, but it can be confusing. In my mind, they're obvious.
You know what I did after that?
What's that?
You know what I did after I did so bad?
What?
I hugged my mother. That's how bad.
If I could give that to you, then I've done my job. If I could make you reach out and give Mom a hug, I mean, now she's going to have to come to a show. She's like, "Who's this guy, Adam? I got a hug from my son." And when's the last time I got a hug from my son?
80,000 years.
Yeah.
I wasn't even born. But no, it was fun. I think it was a question about a mouse.
Oh, dead mouse.
Was that the answer?
Yeah. Yeah, well, and I also wrote it in Leet, which is that online language. So that's a tough one.
Yeah.
That's a tough one I put up there. That was a visual one. Your listener, if you're listening right now, you should give it a shot. I've given the answer, but you'll know what we mean. And and I have to preface and put it in the context. The AdamGrowQuizShow.com website is just it's not really beta because it's live in terms of URL language, but it's basically me. I've created an app. I've created the architecture to take the game online that you can play from your desktop, laptop, mobile device, but it's really not a robust version of the game. My visions are to take that game to a much more comprehensive environment where it's not so clunky. not to take anything away from it, but I just wanted to get it up there and give people a game experience. And what I ideally would love to do is I would love to have an environment where people can participate with my game in a live environment, online, and then also have a broadcast property where it's all completely interconnected.
Yeah.
And you can earn points, for instance, by playing online to be a contestant at my live show and win some big bucks. Now, listen, you should know I'm coming out to St. John's. The show is going to be fantastic. It's later this week, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Hopefully they'll add some second shows if it gets too busy, but it's going to be a lot of fun. You're going to have a gas. But don't come expecting to win a huge amount of money, okay? Ideally, I do have gigs where I have a corporate environment where I am giving away a lot of money on stage, but in the club environments, I try to keep it simple because what happens is if the stakes are too high, people get too nervous and they stop having fun. I don't know. Are you a poker player, Gary?
Sure. You can call me that, I guess. Very
well,
loosely.
have you ever played? You must play Texas Hold'em once in a while.
I have.
So you go into a tournament or you're playing a ring game with a bunch of guys around the table. Used to be I played with a bunch of comics here in Toronto, and we played basically quarter ante, no stakes. On a bad night, you'd be up from 10 p.m. till 4 o'clock in the morning, playing with a bunch of comics that you have a gas, you have a couple of wobbly pops, whatever you call them out there on the Atlantic side of the country. You have some fun. On a bad night, you lose $20, $30 because it's ridiculously no stakes. Texas Hold'em started to catch on, and everybody started to get serious about the money. All of a sudden, you're playing poker with a bunch of buddies, and there's hundreds of dollars on a single pot. Forget the night. And it started to lose its fun. If you're serious about poker, great, go to a casino. Go play big bucks in Vegas or Niagara or wherever. But with your buddies, I just found it kind of lost its appeal. It wasn't fun anymore. It was too much money. So that's what I found with the quiz show. There's been environments where people come on stage. I give at the very end, instead of double or nothing, what I've crafted, my own branded intellectual property is called double or a dollar. So you get a chance to double what you've won, take what you've won on stage out of my pocket, or double it, but if you were wrong, you leave the stage with a loony. So it's double or a dollar. And there's been shows that I've been booked where my booker, ups the ante and gives me even more money than my own money out of my pocket to give away. And these contestants are either going to be faced with, winning $600 or $1, and they're not having fun anymore. I could see it in their face. They're stressed. So while I'd love to give away huge dough, it's not about the money. It's more about the experience. And at the end of the day, if you can come down and you can win enough money to cover your ticket price and maybe your bar tab at Yuck Yucks this weekend, I think that's a pretty sweet deal.
It is. It is. Maybe get a hug from Adam Growe.
No, from your mom.
Well, she gives hugs to
everybody. That's what she's got to be there all weekend. For anybody that's feeling bad about themselves, they didn't get my questions, they're going to get a hug from your mom.
She usually does the Walmarts on weekends.
Okay, well, she's going to have to shift around my shows.
So if you're in aisle 5 on a Friday night in a Walmart, my mother should be there dusting a shelf or doing other things. I got to ask, that money that you give away, is that actually your own money?
Well, I mean, technically speaking, when I book a gig, I go, this is my fee, and there's monies that I give away out of my fee. So arguably, it's like anything else. It's the same way as saying, hey, do we pay $24 for a case of beer, or do we pay $45 because they've included all the marketing fees and everything in the case of beer that we buy? So I craft it as part of my budget. But I will say this, depending on how things are going, what I often do is,
Right check.
I might add money to the pot. Like right now, Yucks has been fantastic. They're bringing me out there. They're giving me a fee to perform, and they're giving me, part of that fee is sweatered for cash prize. And on any given night, if I feel that there's a good vibe, I'm gonna top up and up the ante a little bit. But I don't think it'll be necessary when people, it's just people get a real kick out of winning cash out of my hand, no matter what. If it's $60 or $100, it doesn't really matter.
So back to the cash cab, how did that idea come about? Was that something that you came up with?
I wish. I like to, when there's no liability issues, I like to claim that it was my idea, but I don't really do that. Of course, I'm kidding. It's actually a franchise show. And so it's not a TV secret, but most people don't know but it would be public knowledge if you did a little Google search there, that there's a cash cab in over 30 countries around the world. It actually started in London, England, like much good television, and they only made it there for a season, and then the company that created it started, selling it out to other countries that wanted to make a version of the show. I have a feeling, and I probably would be able to find this out pretty quick, but I have a feeling that we're one of the longest running of Cash Cab right now in Canada, again, with a little over 5 years and hoping for season 9. For instance, they made it in the States, and I know that they made it to at least season 9, maybe season 10, but are no longer making it in New York or Chicago. So I'm hoping to continue and become, a bit more of a dynasty there. And in some of the countries that they've done it, I think they didn't last very long. And Gary, of course, I take full credit for that. It's what was I saying about not being the star of the show? Anyway, I'm just kidding.
No, it's all, man. It's all you.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
It's all you. It should be called Cash
Adam. It's a franchise show. I don't own the rights to it, but what we have done in Canada is we've come up with some of our own ideas. So, for instance, in most of the countries, I don't know if they're copying us, one of the things I changed right away after season 1 was the game usually used to work by format that if you opted for the video bonus question at the end, you got to see the video. If you didn't opt for the video bonus question, you just left the cab. And right away, I recommended we change it that no matter what, if they opt not to go for the video bonus question, they should see the video to see what would have happened. And we got some great drama out of that because obviously, as you can imagine, it seems like a no-brainer. People opt out of it and they go, oh, we totally would have known that. So we get some great television out of that decision. And there's been some other things that we've added to Cash Cab Canada that other countries don't have. Like we have the dispatcher swap out. And we also had in Vancouver the bridge bonus. We now have introduced the high five bonus. If you get 5 correct answers in a row, you get the value of the 5th question doubles in value. And in season 8, which starts in the new year on Discovery, we just finished it this summer. We introduced another new element called the triple play, and that is if you get to your destination without any strikes and you go for the video bonus question and you get it, it's triple or nothing instead of double or nothing. And we had a couple of winners this year over the $2,000 mark,
wow.
Which sounds, when you say it out loud, like not a lot of money. But I'm telling you, if you watch the show, when people win $400 in the cash cap, it's like they won $1 million because they weren't expecting it. So for someone to go for a 20-30 block ride in a cab in Toronto and win $2,500, they're jacked. I mean, they're out of their minds, and rightly so. It's some awesome wins.
Well, yeah, like you said, when someone's not expecting it, I mean, that's like someone winning the lottery, $20. I won $20.
Yeah.
That's an extra ticket to their addiction.
Yes.
I have to ask. This is off the topic of Cash Cab at the quiz show, but who were what drew you to comedy originally?
Well,
what made you do for the first time?
The very, very first time I ever did stand-up per se was for my college at the University of Toronto. And like I said, I'm a host, and I had hosted all sorts of different kinds of events all the way through high school and, early performances even in elementary school. And by the time I landed in first-year university at the University of Toronto, I took over, from one of the senior students what we called a coffee house, which was a talent night. So I started being the MC for that and decided that I also wanted to do my very first stand-up gig. And so I wrote a lot of, obviously, material that was very specific to the residence where I lived at the University of Toronto, and I just, kicked it. Like, I nailed it. And so then everybody said, you got to go to, comedy clubs. So I did a couple of amateur nights at comedy clubs in Toronto, but never really thought seriously of it because it just didn't really appeal to me as a career. So I didn't start in comedy as like a lot of stand-ups, as a comedy student. I wasn't like addicted to comedy, addicted to watching it. I didn't have favorite stand-ups. I just kind of got into it because I loved to be on stage and be on mic and perform. It just seemed another natural progression. So then when my radio career brought me back to Toronto and I was working only part-time in radio in Toronto, I said, well, why not go back? I could start dabbling in comedy again just to keep busy. And then it just took off from there, and I never turned back.
So who are your? Because you didn't have any favorites when you started out, but do you have any favorites now that you really enjoy?
Well, in terms of people that I admire, I like guys like Billy Crystal and Howie Mandel. Me personally, not only do I enjoy their personas and their stage presence, but the way I look at it, because of who I am, I love comedians who are diverse. So both of them, for instance, whether you would put them in the same category yourself or not, I do, because both of them have done relatively serious roles on television, even though Billy Crystal's initial role on Soap, the sitcom, it was a comedy. His role was a pretty serious role. He was one of the first gay characters on television. This is years ago. This is long before your time. Howie Mandel, also long before your time, was on a show called St. Elsewhere, which was a dramatic role. Both of them have done stand-up. Both of them have done multimedia, voice work, radio. Both of them have done one-man shows, which I've done. Both of them have done movies, which I hope to do. And, for instance, Howie hosts some huge network game shows, which I would like to also do. My ultimate goal, which, doesn't make any real sense because I'm not a movie guy, the ultimate goal as a host would be to host the Oscars.
Yeah.
And even though realistically I'm not one to kind of say it's never going to happen, but I have to be realistic. But, in terms of looking at guys that I admire, that's the reason I do, because Billy and Howie have done across the board in so many different genres and venues that that's what I strive for.
Now, I'm a fan of Howie. Howie was actually he was in a kid show, my favorite kid show when I was a child.
Yeah, well, he was
World.
the creator and the voice of that guy.
Yeah, that was a great show.
Yeah, and I'm a big fan of his. I've only met him a couple of times, and I really admire him. And I can only hope that I can elevate my career to even close to being their levels.
I got to ask because I'll tell you two of my favorite comics, and I just wanted to see if you listen to these guys. One is obviously Louis C.K.
Yeah,
and Bill Burr.
I'm not as familiar with Bill Burr, but I'm definitely familiar with Louis C.K. And the reason is a very personal connection just from when I started at that pivotal time when I was starting to get more serious about stand-up in Toronto. The club that became my home club, which has since closed, was called the Laugh Resort. And the Laugh Resort was very, very good at booking up-and-coming American talent. So when I was a young comic, starting to dabble in emceeing and doing middle acts and then co-featuring, I got to MC and introduce guys like Louis C.K., Ray Romano, Gary Valentine, Gary James, a lot of these guys that you could see at the time were massive star potential. Like they would kill, like just knock it out of the park. Mm-hmm. And Louis C.K. used to come up, and he was just a writer for television, already pretty successful. He started when he was about 17 too, by the way, Gary.
Yeah,
he started pretty young. So he was a young guy and was just this very, very clever, extremely funny guy. And it was always one of those things like, we know he's successful. He's headlining. We know he's successful because he's writing for television. He's had great gigs, but he never really broke out until he was, much older in his 40s and had kids, and then something just clicked with him. And he's a pioneer. Like, he's a legend. He has created a whole new business model for comedians with his show. And it's a very exciting time to be in comedy because of a guy like Louis C.K.
So you've met him?
I have met him. I haven't met him since he's been a star, but I met him when he was nobody, and that's kind of cool to be able to say, right?
Yeah, you can say that. You can say the hipster thing now. Met him before he was mainstream, man.
I knew he was going to be famous.
Yeah. I don't like him now because everyone likes him.
Yeah, I know. That's not true at all. But
I have one.
I saw him live. I saw him live in Toronto. It was a great concert.
Recently?
Yeah, the last tour when he was here last year in Toronto. Yeah, so pretty much his most recent tour. I think he's back on the road now, but
And he did great, right?
Oh yeah. Well, and he was workshopping stuff. He's like 3,000 people at the Sony Center in Toronto, and you could tell he was just saying, I thought of this today in my hotel room. I mean, the guy's just a genius. He's in the same league as Brent Butt. Brent Butt is one of those Canadian comics that he writes when he's sleeping, and you just go, the guy's got like 5 hours of material. That's A bits, and he writes stuff on the fly. It's unbelievable.
Of course,
and he was another guy too.
From Corner Gas.
We used to see him headline Brent, and go, why is this guy not a star? I know he's not like a lead man, chiseled, and then all of a sudden, then Corner Gas happened, and, then you go, yeah, so that's what happens.
Yeah. I have one more question for you, and then I'll let you go.
Yeah.
Because I know you got to give away some cash to someone somewhere.
Yeah, I got another call coming in, sort of be like a diva.
You're seeing someone on the side?
Yeah, well,
I'm not
another
good enough.
St. John's radio station, buddy, sorry.
I'm not good enough for you?
Yeah, no, I want to hug your mother when I get into town is all I'm saying.
That can go any way, man. When you started doing this, started going into the entertainment business, as a younger guy starting out, did you get a lot of support from family?
Yes, yeah, I've been very fortunate. My parents have always been supportive. My wife, who was my girlfriend at the time, got it. There are certain things that people just will never get in terms of the kind of hours and commitment and the gigs you will do to make it work, and how you can go for 1 month with zero income and then the next month make 3 months income in 1 month. It's very unpredictable. It's not for everybody. But I was very fortunate that the people around me, even if they were stressed at times, they didn't try to divert it. They didn't try to talk me out of it. I think that if you've got a network of people, friends and family, that get that you're going to find success if you do what you love, whatever that might be, you're a lucky person if you've got that around you.
Well, that's great to know.
Yeah.
And that's why you've succeeded, man.
Yeah. Well, you got to have a network of support, and you've got to have the commitment, and it will come. And so, I hope. I know people now after this interview are for sure going to come, but I hope you were already planning on coming to Yucks this week and see the Adam Growe Quiz Show. If I can plug it one more time, 24th to 26th, 8 p.m. shows, and hopefully if any of them sell out, they'll add another show. So don't worry about it. Just make your reservations and get down there, and hopefully, in addition to laughing your butts off, you'll have a great time and maybe even get up on stage and win some cash.
Of course, tickets are $24.95. But if you go to the show, you can walk out with $24.96 maybe.
Yeah.
And get your money back.
I've got correct change.
He has correct. No, there's no pennies. That's right. You had to round up. $25.
Yeah.
It's great talking to you, Adam.
You too, man. And we'll see you later this week.
I will. I'll come up and I'll hug you from behind.
Cheers, buddy.
See you then.
Talk to you.
Bye.